Well, here's the troubling reality about 2023 fantasy football. It has been a year with lots of quarterback injuries, man. We've got major injuries to some key quarterbacks here. We're not just missing just some guys. We're missing guys like Joe Burrow right now. We've had lots of miscellaneous injuries to quarterbacks here. It was requested that I do an updated quarterback rankings video, so I figured I might as well just make it about the playoffs since we've got the fantasy football playoffs coming up. So today, I am going through the top 12 quarterback rankings for the fantasy football playoffs in 2023. And just let me know in the comments below what videos you need to see in preparation for your fantasy football playoffs, because I am trying to make the best videos possible for you guys to win your fantasy football championship this year. So please go down there, drop a like on this video, and subscribe to the channel to show your support. So in the first tier here, really all these guys are basically just, to me, their floors are above the rest. When it comes down to quarterbacks, you're looking for the guys with the highest floors as your top options in fantasy. Jalen Hurts at number 1, he's got one of the safest floors in all of fantasy football. You can see his numbers on the screen being okay from a passing perspective. There's nothing outstanding about his passing per se, but his rushing ability is not to be questioned. His rushing upside is tremendous, and he's already ran it in 7 times this year. That rushing upside gives him a massive ceiling. It gives him a massive leg up in your fantasy football playoffs. And the schedule that he's got is really favorable. Aside from Seattle in the first week, in Seattle, which is not a bad matchup by any stretch of the imagination, but then he takes on the Giants in Philadelphia. By that time, the Giants will have no more life left in them because that will be the end of that. And then they've got Arizona. They've got Arizona in the championship week, where Philadelphia is likely going to be fighting for seeding. So I hear a lot of questions every single year about what happens if Team A starts benching their players in preparation for the playoffs. Now, this is a valid concern. It's not that concern is not logical, but the reality is that most of the times when teams are doing that, it comes in week 18, which in most cases, your fantasy football playoffs are ended week 17. The week before that stuff typically happens. So it doesn't usually turn out to be a huge issue here. And that's why Jalen Hurts, I don't have any concerns with, because he's been so great in fantasy. And Josh Allen, as bad as he has played, has been tremendous as well. Josh Allen, the reason that he's so good at fantasy, and he will be, regardless of who he plays, is because of the rushing upside. He's the quarterback 1 as of the time of this filming, immediately after week 11 fantasy football. Josh Allen is just simply too great of a fantasy player because the rushing upside he presents is extremely high. It's basically, as you can see on the screen, very similar to Jalen Hurts. 7 touchdowns rushing already. Josh Allen is the run game in Buffalo. He is obviously the pass game in Buffalo. Josh Allen, it doesn't matter if he's in a slump or not. His floor is so stupid high, and even with the interceptions that he throws, and I saw a crazy stat today that Josh Allen has led the league in interceptions for years now, but yet he still finishes as one of the best fantasy quarterbacks every year. Why? Because of the floor he has with the rushing upside and because of the big boom ability. Now he takes on Dallas in week 1 of the fantasy playoffs. That's obviously not an ideal matchup that I don't exactly think he's going to carve up. And then he takes on the Chargers, which is a much better matchup from a secondary perspective. And then the championship week, he takes on New England in Buffalo. This is a situation where it's kind of like I said with Stephon Diggs in the buy low video I made for week 11 fantasy football, which is that when you have a tremendous player like this, schedule really doesn't matter because the floor of Josh Allen is so high, and that's exactly why he's a great fantasy quarterback heading into your playoffs. I would not bench this guy. I would not try to trade him. I'd ride it out with him. Same thing I'd do with Justin Herbert at number 3. Justin Herbert at number 3 has been absolutely tremendous considering all factors. I mean, consider the fact that he lost Mike Williams basically right as the season started. Consider the fact that their first round rookie Quentin Johnston is looking like a total bust. It's been just a complete you-know-what show in Los Angeles this year. Their coaching's not good. and he's still been tremendous. Now, I think that Kellen Moore definitely helps out with that. I think he does for sure, and that's exactly why I think that goes into the reason why Justin Herbert's a great fantasy option moving forward. He takes on the Raiders in Las Vegas in week 1 of the fantasy championship. That's a beatable matchup for sure. Then he takes on the Chargers in week 2 of your fantasy playoffs. And then he takes on the Denver Broncos in your fantasy championship. Their secondary's looking better for sure. But again, this guy's floor is simply just too high because he also adds a little bit of rushing upside as well. And he's just simply a tremendous player who has been averaging over 20 fantasy points per game up to this point. Justin Herbert is still a very good option in your fantasy playoffs. CJ Stroud, to begin the next tier here. CJ Stroud at number 4 is maybe going to shock some people, maybe not. CJ Stroud to me is a tremendous fantasy playoff player. I want everything to do with him. CJ Stroud takes on the Tennessee Titans twice in the playoffs. Tennessee has been awful this year on basically every front, and they're only getting worse. Tennessee week 1 in Houston. Then they've got Cleveland sandwiched in between, which of course, not a good matchup. Nobody's saying that's a good matchup at all, but if you can get past Cleveland, you've got Tennessee again. CJ Stroud to me is tremendous, and really what it plays a large part into in finding fantasy quarterbacks in the playoffs is looking at what they've done recently. CJ Stroud has been miraculous recently. He's really evolved, and he had a tougher week against the Arizona Cardinals in week 11, but that's bound to happen for a rookie quarterback. Tennessee's defense, I don't see them putting up much of a fight. Cleveland will be a tester, but CJ Stroud has just looked so mature. He's looked so ready to go. He's got weapons. I don't worry about CJ Stroud. He is seeing the field well. He's playing great football. I love CJ Stroud in the playoffs. Patrick Mahomes at number 5 here. Patrick Mahomes it's a really weird case study right now, actually. Patrick Mahomes is not a top 10 quarterback in fantasy right now. As of this filming, after week 11, he has not played versus Philadelphia yet, but as of right now, the time of this filming, Patrick Mahomes is not a top 10 quarterback in fantasy. He has been very underwhelming this year from a fantasy football perspective, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that his weapons are no good. His weapons just aren't very good. Now, when it comes to him as a player, obviously he's great. And that's exactly why he's up here at number 5. Because I think that what you see with elite quarterbacks at this time of the year where they're fighting for seeding, they're fighting for playoffs, they're fighting for momentum, the best quarterbacks rise to the top. And in weeks 15 through 17, he's got to go to New England to face the Patriots. Not scary at all. Then he's taking on the Raiders at home. And then he's taking on the Bengals at home without Joe Burrow. And their defense by then is going to be worn down from being on the field way too much. Patrick Mahomes, I get it. It has not been a great season this year. I would say if you can buy him low, might be a good opportunity here because Patrick Mahomes is just simply an elite quarterback, and the elite rise to the top at this time of the season. I've got Dak Prescott one spot over Lamar Jackson here, and it might sound crazy. I mean, honestly, like it might sound like a crazy idea because when you look at Dak Prescott, like he's been excellent the past several weeks. He's the quarterback one over the past 3 weeks. And I think that really Dak Prescott, it might actually sound crazy that he's not higher than this. Let's explain Dak Prescott versus Lamar Jackson. Dak Prescott, over the past 3 weeks, has played Philadelphia, he's played the Giants, and he's played Carolina. Now, that is a very easy stretch of opponents, aside from the Philadelphia Eagles. He does not get that luxury in the playoffs. He's got to go to Buffalo to take on the Bills. Great defense. He's got to go to Miami to take on their defense. Their defense is improving with Jalen Ramsey. And then he's got Detroit at home. This is not an easy schedule for a quarterback. Now, whereas Lamar Jackson has just as tough of a schedule. He's got Jacksonville in Jacksonville. Then he's got the 49ers in San Francisco. And he's got the Miami Dolphins at home. Now, the difference here, really what it comes down to for me, is that Lamar Jackson has been really inconsistent this year, and especially of late, as of the time of this filming. Very inconsistent player. I have not loved what I've seen from Lamar Jackson over the past several weeks. It's not been looking great. Dak Prescott has the momentum. Lamar Jackson doesn't really. And now without Mark Andrews, I have some issues here. but they're both still very good options here at 6 and 7. 8, I've got Brock Purdy. And Brock Purdy, to me, had a stretch where he was down. And it was tough, right? You were going through that tough time having Brock Purdy as your quarterback, and it was not good. I have him in several best ball leagues and in several redraft leagues. I was suffering as a result. Now, Brock Purdy has rebounded very well out of the bye week for San Francisco. And his weeks in the playoffs, he's got to go to Arizona to take on the Cardinals. Not a scary matchup. Then he's got the Ravens. That's not an easy matchup. No question at all. But then he's taking on the Washington Commanders secondary. That's a cakewalk in your fantasy championship. Brock Purdy, to me, with the weapons he has, with the offensive line he has, with the coaching he has, he's going to be a very solid fantasy playoff quarterback. Much like, and it may surprise you, Justin Fields at number 9. I've got Justin Fields here at 9 simply because of the fact that, much like the quarterbacks in the elite tier that we discussed first, Justin Fields has the floor because he has that rushing capability. That rushing upside in fantasy football. Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen. All of them have it. And Justin Fields has it actually to a larger extent than all of them. He just ripped off a 100-yard rushing game in Week 11 versus the Detroit Lions. Justin Fields, to me, is still a very good, solid quarterback in the fantasy football playoffs. He's got Cleveland Week 1. That's not easy. Nobody's calling that easy, but you make it past Cleveland. He's got the Arizona Cardinals, and then he's got the Atlanta Falcons. Just outrageously good. Outrageously good. So, Justin Fields, I get it. It's a little bit unstable. Once we get down to this range, all these guys are unstable because you'll see here, I've got Jared Goff at 11. I've got Jared Goff at 10 and Trevor Lawrence at 11. Jared Goff coming off a very disappointing week in Week 11 versus the Chicago Bears. And that was at home too. And what we know about Jared Goff is he's better home than away. And he's also better in the dome. He's better in a dome. The good thing about this is that he gets every single matchup in the playoffs in a dome. He's got to take on Denver at home. Then he's got to take on the Vikings in Minnesota, and then Dallas and Dallas. So 2 of those are away. 1 of them are home. Don't love that, but I love that they're all in a dome. And again, it's a similar situation to Brock Purdy. The weapons he has are tremendous. The coaching he has is tremendous. The offensive line, even better than San Francisco. Jared Goff, I just can't have outside the top 10. And Trevor Lawrence looking like he's rebounding out of the bye week. Trevor Lawrence is just a good player. He's a very good player with good weapons. He's got the Ravens in week 15, first week of the playoffs. Then he's got Tampa Bay in Tampa Bay. And then he's got the Carolina Panthers at home in Jacksonville in your fantasy playoffs. Trevor Lawrence, to me, I am banking on this guy. And it's honestly a good buy low opportunity right now for someone who may be looking to move off of him because of his performance this year. I would buy Trevor Lawrence off of somebody. This is a move I would definitely make. And honestly, number 12 I struggled with. I really did. I was going back and forth between Tua and Sam Howell. I ended up going with Sam Howell. And I'll tell you the reason why. So Sam Howell's schedule is not fun. He's got the Los Angeles Rams in Los Angeles in Week 15. The defense is not good, but they're going to Los Angeles. So that's not a great thing. Then they're taking on the New York Jets in New York. Not a good matchup again. And then the championship week, he's got San Francisco. The schedule sucks. It really does. The reason why he's over Tua is because Tua's schedule is just as hard. Tua's schedule is really bad. You can see that on the screen right now. And Sam Howell throws so many freaking passes. You could see those numbers on the screen as well. The passing amount, the passing volume he sees is so tremendous that he's bound to have good weeks, and he's had very good weeks up to this point. Super boomer bust, super unstable. That's why he's down at 12. I'm nervous about it, but I do think that he still remains a top 12 quarterback in fantasy football for your playoffs. So let me know what you think of the rankings in the comments below and what questions you need answered for the rest of your fantasy football season. And if you want to see the top 12 defense rankings for the playoffs in fantasy football, click on this video right here.